All right, and welcome back. It is another edition of the Sooner Scoop podcast. Carey Murdoch here with you. Eddie Radosevich joining me as well, and we're here to talk about, well, what's been going on with the team recently. And Eddie, a lot of things going on. Big 12 meetings have taken place. You and I spent the weekend out at OU camps along with Joe Duvall. A lot of stuff with Baker Mayfield coming out of the Big 12 media days. I actually had a chance to catch up with him. You're going to hear from him a little bit here on this podcast as well. Stuff going on at Baylor that I think impacts Oklahoma in a lot of ways. But outside of recruiting, I know you've been all over camps and team camps and stuff like that. There's just a lot of stuff going on this time of year.
There really is. It was kind of, I thought it was really funny when you tweeted the other day. I think it was maybe the Tuesday or Wednesday after the end of the Thunder season. I think you tweeted something to the effect of, you can definitely tell that it's football season or that basketball season is over with all the news that came out of Irving last week with the Big 12, and then the Baker Mayfield news certainly was the probably the number one news story of the week last week, coming down that Mayfield will receive an extra year and everything that goes along with that. And it just seems like it's a really good time for Oklahoma right now with everything that's going on, especially if you even want to go all the way over to the softball stadium. Yeah,
in Oklahoma now in the national championship series there with Auburn. But it was interesting because when the Big 12 stuff popped up, I don't know if I just lost track of but I think Chuck Carlton was the first one to kind of come out and report, hey, there's a chance that there's going to be a ruling on this walk-on stuff at the Big 12 meetings, and it kind of sent everybody scrambling. And I think I just assumed it was kind of dead. And when I talked to Baker yesterday out at OU's football camp, he was like, yeah, he kind of given up on it, but he knew that Joe C. and Bourne and Kelly Dampus, who is the academic faculty rep for athletics, that they were working on something that they were going to present to the Big 12, and I think the best thing that happened was that it failed the first day that they did it, because it caused such public outrage that you basically kind of are creating these indentured servants in walk-ons that have no rights whatsoever to better themselves.
I don't think that the Big 12, when they came out with the decision on Wednesday, had any idea that it was going to be as big of a story as it ended up being. And when you get national writers on your back or writing stories about how terrible the conference is at decision making, and even going back to after the an hour or so after the decision was initially released on Wednesday, that they would be it was a split vote 5-5. He wasn't going to get the year of eligibility left. I think Joe C. even said something about, they're going to revisit this. It's going to they're going to still stay after it and go after it. I kind of figured that was going to be, okay, that's something that's going to happen in 2017 or maybe 2 years
later in the
now.
year.
I didn't realize that they were going to go back the very next day. And
yeah. And I mean, for Bob Stoops and Joe Castiglione to actually issue statements after it was over, I thought that was like, okay, they just kind of want to show everybody how pissed off they are about this, and there's no chance of it getting changed, and that's why they're doing this, because they're just pissed. But I don't know whose idea it was. I haven't had a chance to really talk to anybody about who came up with it, but it was brilliant to basically say, look, because it brilliant in two ways. One, you say there has to be a written offer of aid, and then if that happens, it's kind of like being a restricted free agent. If you're in the NBA, and someone wants to offer you money, and you match that offer, then you keep them. So it's essentially working the same way for walk-ons. If a walk-on has interest from another university, another school, then they are allowed to match that offer, give them a written acceptance of aid. They can sign it and keep them. And one, it was great because it was 5-5 the day before. It ended up giving them a 7-3 vote, which passed the resolution or the rule. And it also, secondly, made it so there was no way that Texas Tech could argue that Baker Mayfield definitely had a scholarship offer for that second semester.
Where are you at? What schools do you think changed their votes in that?
Because we know not Tech.
I thought that was really interesting that I think it was Travis Haney reported that Tech had voted yes in both circumstances, the day before and the revisitation of the vote to make it 7-3.
I missed that, I guess.
So I think it comes down to Oklahoma State or West Virginia. Because I think Texas would be against it. Baylor was probably against it.
Texas would be against it because they never would take advantage of something like that.
No, probably not.
I mean, people would be stealing their walk-ons more than they would be stealing. I don't know. Is it crazy to think that Oklahoma voted against it?
That would be something.
There's no way that OU voted against it.
That would be something for that to finally come out.
For Kansas not to say, it made you wonder. I could see them being against it because they could use some walk-ons.
Yeah.
Or every walk-on they need, they don't want people poaching their walk-ons.
They can't. They were under the scholarship limit last year.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see how that happens, but at the end of the day, it's definitely a good thing for Oklahoma. I think that we've had conversations off of this. If how ironic is it going to be if Baker Mayfield goes out, they have a really good season, say he does win the Heisman Trophy, what good does it for him to even come back next season and use that extra year of eligibility?
Yeah, and I saw him on the practice field yesterday. I was kind of over on his part of the field. Like what they do is the last day of practice, like you and Joe, I was like, just go home. I'll go back out there because nothing goes on that last session of summer camp. They play this thing called Sooner Ball, which is essentially a way for the coaches to just be done. But they're all standing out there and stuff. So it's Sooner Ball is like how would you describe it? Like rugby meets soccer, but you throw a football kind of?
Yeah, because you can't run with it, can you? Like you can take like one.
You can throw it sideways or forward. And I think you can throw it backwards, but you can't. I don't know.
There's no like forward. I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's definitely not 7-on-7, but it's like 7-on-7 meets rugby meets
it's
a
like
little bit of basketball.
20-on-20. I mean, it's chaos. So like everybody's around there, and all the coach. We'll talk about this in a second. But there's a lot of players that were coaching out there. And Baker Mayfield was on one team and Jordan Smallwood was on the other. And so I think all the coaches were kind of standing around that and all the people were standing around there. So I waited it out and it was over. And I wanted to go see if Baker would talk. And first thing he said to me, he looks at me, he goes, well, you got to deal with me for one more year. They can't get rid of me. And so he kind of broke the ice there saying, I'm probably here till 2017, which, you're right. If he wins the Heisman, if Oklahoma wins a national championship, what reason do you have to stay? I mean,
defend, I guess, would be the only one. Go play at Ohio State in 2017.
I mean, he's a guy that definitely believes in himself. So yeah. I think he believes he could play in the NFL. I mean, I'm sure that's his goal. It's not anything we've really gotten to talk to at this point. But I tell you, here, let's listen to Baker Mayfield. Here was our conversation that we had about the ruling in the Big 12 now that he's got an extra year of eligibility. Is it easier to come out here when all the good stuff that's happened to you happened this week?
It's enjoyable, that's for sure. It's been a good week, so it's been good for me.
I mean, that's something. I mean, did you ever just give up on the thought that you were ever going to get that year
I really
back?
did. I really didn't think that I was going to get it back, but they were telling me otherwise. So, and hats off to everybody that was working on it. I mean, Joe C., Boren, and Kelly Danfus. I mean, they really put in the work, and they're the reason that they got the right rule changed and for the better of all walk-ons. And so, obviously, it impacts me, but it's the right thing to do. And if the conference and the NCAA says for the welfare of the student athlete, then that's the right thing to do.
What was interesting to me too is seeing Baker out there. I mean, not saying that he doesn't have a chip on his shoulder, but it was kind of pleasant dealing with not angry Baker for once. Like middle of the summer, not in the season. He's not angry at Tech. He's not angry at where the team is ranked. All that stuff.
This is going to be the first year, I think, that he probably goes into a season in which he really doesn't have a reason to have a chip on his shoulder. I guess people are going to say that I guess they're going to create something, and they're going to have a chip on their shoulder once they get down to the start of camp in August and then the Houston game. But it's going to be really interesting to see what what they can make up as far as a chip on their shoulder going into the season.
Houston Mayor's number one.
Yeah, I guess so.
I thought about asking somebody out there over the weekend, like, do you have any quotes from the Houston mayor hanging up in your?
I'm sure that they will.
It would be hard to miss quotes hanging up right now in that small of a locker room that they're in. So, But yeah, I mean, it's cool. I'm happy for Baker. I'm happy that we get to deal with kind of a happy Baker, at least for now. Who knows what it'll be like when training camp starts. He'll probably go back into defensive motivational guy mode.
Oh, I'm sure. There'll be something that happens in between now and then.
He'll find something to get a chip on his shoulder. Now, one thing it does do is, a lot of people were talking about what this does to Kyler Murray, well known to have had a falling out at Texas A&M, a father that some will say is, very much in the thick of his business, I guess you could say. And to be honest, we really don't know. I mean, I think if you're Kyler Murray, you've already made a change. The best thing to do is just see how. For Kyler Murray, I mean, he might watch as Austin Kendall as the starting quarterback by the end of the year, the way Baker runs around.
Yeah, it very well could happen. I mean, I think that, Kyler is in a really interesting spot, too, with that. He's going to have to sit out. He's going to have to serve that year that Baker did. And you talked to Baker about how much he grew after that year of sitting out and stuff. And maybe that can be parlayed into the same thing for Kyler Murray, and that he can, finally, I guess, get his feet underneath him in college. I don't know if he really has ever had that opportunity as things kind of landed in his lap so quickly down in College Station. Maybe this year will be good for him. Maybe he can mature a little bit and use it to his advantage. And then, I think that Austin Kendall is going to really be in a situation that he's going to play some meaningful snaps, I would think, at some point this season. To think that Baker isn't going to he says he's not going to change his style of play, and I think that will be I don't know if that's going to lead to his I guess I don't want to say injury, but it's definitely going to affect how he handles things. And at some point, Austin Kendall is going to have to go in there and take a couple snaps, I would think.
Eddie Radosevich.
I'm sorry, I had to do it. Look, here's the thing. What's really weird, and it's not something that we've talked a whole lot about, but it's I don't want to say weird. It is unique that we talked to Kyler Murray a lot already. He came in here and he was media accessible, media available. When you talk to him, he seems like a very mature kid. Mm-hmm. Seems like a guy that's got his head on his shoulders. He did kind of, excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. He did kind of take his opportunity to say some veiled things about Texas A&M and the situation he was in. But not really taking direct shots. It was just more like, I'm in a better situation now. Yeah. Lincoln Riley is the kind of person I wanted to play for. How great a coach he is, what the system is, how it fits him, all those kinds of things. So you never know. I mean, maybe he's mad right now. Maybe the coaches have had to have meetings with he and his father. I haven't heard any of that. I don't want to start any rumors. I'm just saying things can change overnight. But from what we've seen of Kyler Murray, it would be surprising, knowing that he's already going to sit out a year, to do anything rash and just try and start over just because of this one decision that's been made by the conference.
And I think, too, at the same time, that Kyler Murray, any type of quarterback at this level, if he doesn't have some sense of maybe, I don't want to say arrogance, but maybe a cockiness and belief in himself.
Yeah, he definitely has that.
There aren't guys out there that are going to just, I guess, run away from a situation like this. And talking about Kyler Murray and then I guess Baker Mayfield, even with the extra year, something that ran through my head was, in their relationship with Lincoln Riley, does getting Baker back for an extra year keep Lincoln Riley around for an extra year?
Depends on how good the job offer is. Yeah. I mean, if he gets offered, I'm just trying to think Miami or something or USC. Sorry, Baker.
Well, both those jobs are, I guess, I know you're just throwing a couple out there. It would have to be certainly a special situation. I think that
it'd have to be a tradition-rich program. I mean, I don't think he's leaving for, if Tom Herman leaves Houston, I can't see him leaving for Houston.
Yeah.
Although that's not a bad stepping stone job for people.
No, it's not, and it has been. I mean, it's kind of turned into exactly that, of being a stepping stone. And
worked for Kevin Sumlin.
Yeah, it's worked for, I guess, a lot of guys. I guess even going back all the way to Art Briles.
Yeah, you're right. So now Baylor, if they get rid of Jim Grove after this year, if he's just a placeholder, I think I mean, I think that's one you might worry about a little bit, being that it's Texas.
I just would not. I don't know. I tweeted it the other night. Why would Jim Grobe even want to step into what he has down there?
Because he's bored.
Gosh, I just think
I mean, you coach your entire life, and then you retire, and I'm sure you have second thoughts. I mean,
I guess he thinks that he is stepping into I guess from a football aspect of things with the players returning, he's stepping into a great situation. He could, it'd be really funny if he tried to, if they had a really good year, say Baylor has a really good year, wins the Big 12 somehow, and then he bolts for something better.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's what he's looking to do.
That would be the biggest, I don't know, I was going to cuss, but that'd be an awesome move. That'd be a power move on Jim Grobe's part, I feel like, if he left Baylor after 1 year and kind of left them with the fallout of whatever is getting ready to happen down there.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but back to the Big 12 meetings. Conference contraction was not on the table because of Baylor. They did talk conference expansion, and it was interesting because they've got all these stuff. It's stupid. I mean, it's university life, and we talked about this on the radio a lot. Like this is not made for television stuff.
No.
When Bourne and Bowlesby talk to the press, because it is like academia. Like I didn't pay $1,000 a plate to sit there and hear people talk.
It's amazing to hear those guys talk, and it seems like they use so many words to just say no or we're not doing that, but it's like a 15-minute explanation of why they don't do it.
Well, here's a good example. And this is probably the most interesting piece of audio from either Bob Bowlesby or David Boren. But it is essentially, like you're saying, a fancy way of saying we don't want sucky teams in this conference.
Yeah.
And Boren went on to use the word dilutive about 50 times, saying we don't want no scrubs.
To use a financial term, yes, we want to make sure they're not dilutive. So in other words, you want to look at how do they fit athletically? What is their fan base? What media markets are they in? Obviously, we want to look at where do they stand academically. We don't want to be dilutive academically as well as athletically. So where are they? What's their level of as a research institution? What's their excellence in teaching and the rest of it? So yes, I would say that to use the financial term, we want to make sure they're not dilutive to, I think, what is a very strong conference at the present time. I just think back to, for example, the basketball season, which was a wonderful experience for me this year. And what other conference in the nation had the level of competitiveness that we had, for example, during the basketball season and as the Big 12? So, we want to make sure they're not dilutive. We'll look at it from every direction, every kind of component.
Oh, memories. That magical OU basketball season, in the middle of a Big 12 expansion debate.
It just blows my mind, the 180.
You're not dilutive, Eddie. I just want you to know.
I'm not. I hope I'm not.
We feel that you are not dilutive to Soonerscoop.com.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That feels good to know that. It's job security right there.
I am dilutive, though.
I just don't understand why and how everything took a 180, or even, I mean, everything I feel like has just his whole mindset and
about going
voice of direction.
How he was, we need a network. After
that meeting at the Board of Regents meeting, even, and that would have been 2 weeks before the Big 12 meetings in Irving last week.
Yeah.
I thought Bourne was standing on a pretty firm stance that they needed these three things, or at least needed one of them. And then it was like, well, we gave you Baker Mayfield, so you're going to have to come down on this, and Texas wins again. I feel like that was kind of the tone coming out of the Big 12 meetings in Dallas.
Here's kind of how I look at it is Boren, he has so many other things he's doing and working on and raising money and
building dorms and
building residential colleges and professors coming and going and this stuff. I think the last thing that David Boren knows about is what's going on with cord shaving and cord cutting and the fact that ESPN is laying off. He has no idea. Like, the Bill Simmons stuff and the why can't I ever remember Keith Olbermann and Dan Patrick was a long time ago, but all these big voices, Colin Cowherd, that they just let go.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been seeing people that watch sports that are interested in Sports Center understand, okay, ESPN is owned by Disney. Disney is making all these cost-cutting moves. Watching Sports Center is so different than it used to be. We know what's going on. But Bourne, he's not in that world. They need to hire consultants to come in and say, look, the bubble has burst a little bit here.
Yeah.
On all these contracts that ESPN was once paying all this money for, and you can't start a network anymore. The SEC was the last network that was going to start. The ACC has a deal to make a network with ESPN, and they can't get it done. And they've been doing this longer than the Big 12. The Pac-12 is having all kinds of trouble with the Pac-12 network and distribution of DirecTV and all that stuff. I think he got into there and he realized, okay, I said all this stuff about we need a network. It's obvious. It's glaringly obvious that is impossible now.
Mm-hmm. Well, then, so what is the next direction that you take? I mean, you can't just, do you just stand pat? And then adding the Big 12 championship game in coming back in 2017, I feel like I'm not as big of a, I guess, I'm not as against the rematch, if you will, that would be in a Big 12 championship game. But where does this conference go? I mean, now that Oklahoma has made this stance, I feel like you can't go back now and just stand pat in where they are. I mean, you have to make some type of move or some type of change, or your entire fan base is going to be alienated. I mean, you saw the tweets coming into both of us after these decisions were made. I mean, it was, I would say, every 5 out of 6 OU fans are against the Big 12 right now in any type of decision they make.
You've lost the fans. I mean, that's what it comes down to, especially OU fans. I mean,
they are pissed off.
I can understand why. Here's one thing that is bad for Oklahoma, and I saw you tweet about this after I think they won their regional yesterday, but, I mean, OU wanted Louisville, and the rest of the conference didn't have the foresight to grab them when they had the chance. Now, if you had Louisville and BYU, you're
not
fine.
that bad.
Nobody's ripping you as being less than as a conference. But I'll say this. Since you don't have Louisville, my first option, if you're going to stay in the Big 12, and by the way, I still favor jumping to the SEC. That's still where I sit. But if you are going to expand, grab BYU now, have an 11-team conference. The Big Ten did that for a while. You don't have to worry about a network. Yeah, it screws up scheduling. You have an unbalanced schedule. But so what? You're going to add a championship game. That makes more sense than having 10 teams in a championship game.
It makes a lot more sense. What does the BYU network, I guess it doesn't really matter if Texas is going to have their network. Why can't BYU?
I don't think their network is anything bigger than what OU's network is.
They fill a lot of programming on the BYU network. I've flipped over to it a couple times.
I didn't even realize that they have a dedicated channel.
Yeah, it's like 1460 something in the channel guide, and I would say besides reruns of Mountain West basketball games at like 2:30 in the morning, you'll get your occasional preacher guy for an hour talking about the Mormon faith, and then I don't know, it's kind of strange, but
I mean, if you're the Big 12, just let them have it.
Who cares?
Yeah,
I mean, it's a national network anyways, and
then have the understanding that if things change and a network comes together, then they'll scratch it or they'll envelop it into the rest of the Big 12 network. But anyway, if you're not going to add BYU, I say just stay where you are at 10, and let's see how things shake out, and let the Grantorites get here and pass, and then you either jump conferences or you steal an Arizona or an Arizona State.
That would be interesting.
Or a Florida State or a Clemson.
I just don't see any way that the Big 12 can go out and add a I guess Central Florida was the big talk this morning.
I don't want any of that crap.
I mean, it just doesn't sound.
I don't want Memphis.
No.
I don't want Houston.
I still don't.
Pat.
I still don't understand the Houston thing. There has to be some kind of angle that I feel like Red McCombs is taking in calling out the Texas athletic director and saying that they're dead wrong. And I don't understand the infatuation with Houston and how bad it would be for Texas, for Oklahoma, if they were to enter this conference. I mean, you were taking such a big hit, I think, recruiting wise, if you add a school like Houston, that it's I think it's a can of worms that you don't want to even get close to.
Well, let's face it. If Baylor falls off, like there's a chance that they could, they are back to being in a stadium that nobody goes to.
Yeah.
I mean, I very much grew up in the day and age where every game in Waco there were more OU fans than Baylor fans. It's just like going to Lawrence right now.
Yeah.
It's no different. That's what it was like at Baylor. They could easily be back there. Now, Houston, they're the same type of team. Nobody. I mean, you've seen the stadium at TCU when they play Kansas.
Yeah, there's nobody.
Nobody goes to those games. We don't. Is a Big 12. I say we. The Big 12 does not need to add another TCU and Baylor. That's just turning it into the Southwest Conference again.
That would be. I think that'd just be the worst option. And I've been pretty adamant in saying that it will never happen. Houston will never join this conference with Oklahoma in it.
No, and I don't think Texas wants that either. Well, Texas doesn't want that either. Now, Texas Tech probably doesn't care because they're not really that big into Houston, but TCU, I guarantee, doesn't want that.
No.
So, anyway, well, that's Big 12 meetings happened this week. Also, over the weekend, we were out at the Bob Stoops football camps. It was, it was like 80% humidity. I'm so old and fat.
Every
About
year,
killed me day
every
one.
year that thing comes around. It's kind of like the RCS Dallas camp. It's always windy and cold in Dallas during the Rivals Camp Series down there.
It is, yeah.
In reverse, or I guess in opposite, the OU summer camp, it always is
miserable.
humid. It's humid. It rains a little bit, and it just, I don't know. It seems like it's worse, and not the camp, but the weather is worse and worse every year.
Well, Josh and Joe are going to join us for some recruiting podcasts. We're heading down to Atlanta this week for the 5-star camp. We've got OU satellite camps, OU elite camp coming up tomorrow or Wednesday. Then Thursday, the Dallas satellite camps will be going on. You guys will be down there. I'm flying to Atlanta on Wednesday to get there a little early for the 5-star challenge. But there are the OU camps going on right now, and we're going to cover all the camp stuff and some podcasts to come. The team aspect of it that I wanted to talk about was just that the OU players, once again, were out there working. We were able to kind of break a little something, and that Micaiah Quick was working as a defensive backs coach. I just went up to Mike Stoops and I was like, dude, does he play for defense now? And he's like, yeah, he's our cornerback now. It's like, we're going to try it. Now, I did talk to Kerry Cooks a little bit and, just kind of pick his ear about what he thought about the move. And I said, hey, I mean, Micaiah Quick is out there coaching like he's been a defensive back for a long time. And he was kind of like, yeah, we'll see. It's really easy to teach kids how to do it. We'll see if you can do it in a real game. So they're pushing him, and they're I think a little curious to see how he takes to it when the balls start flying in the air. And you got to admit, the end of the spring game, he was one of the stars at receiver. I think a lot of people were like, okay, maybe that's the guy. I mean, he's highly recruited. I think athletically, he's got a little bit more than Jarvis Baxter does, a little bit more speed, a little bit more quickness. People were kind of hoping he could become this slot guy that could be a bigger weapon for this offense. But I don't know. I mean, maybe it's PJ and Bonasaur. Maybe it's Dakota Austin. Maybe it's Antoine Stevens. But they felt like they needed another cornerback for some reason.
It seems like they were really impressed with Antoine Stevens. He was that guy that I think Zach Sanchez brought his name up after Pro Day. He was a guy that you felt like took a lot of strides in that area. And, going back to Micaiah and him playing cornerback, do you remember in Atlanta where he was a cornerback, wasn't he, when he went to the 5-star, that very first 5-star challenge?
He played, because he was wearing that quick headband.
Yeah.
And he was playing.
He was a cornerback. He was a defensive back.
And he came over a little bit to offense every once in a while, but I remember watching him at receiver and just thinking he's so much better as a defensive back than he is a wide receiver.
It's going to be really interesting to see where he's at in the scheme of things, because his body style isn't. I don't think it's like a Jordan Thomas in that he's not very long.
He's not real long, yeah.
But I mean, he's obviously athletic enough to play either side of the ball. I think that he just needs to find a home. I mean, this is kind of a put up or shut up year for him, because you get into your junior, when you start getting into that junior year and you're not producing, you almost get lost in the shuffle. You become kind of a Stan Von Taylor has, and so it's going to be really interesting to see how he kind of gets his. I guess if he can find his rhythm in the Oklahoma program, he never really has been able to. Or had the opportunity to, and I kind of wonder where that leaves Oklahoma at the wide receiver position as much as anything. I think that they have guys that are I guess maybe making more plays, or they have guys that they feel like they're more confident on that side of the ball. I don't think that they would move him if they didn't feel like they had other guys.
I went and I was thumbing through our Flickr account. I was going to put some photos from this weekend up on it. And I came across some of the spring practice photos, and just watching the guys, it was like Micaiah Quick, the Geno Lewis kid, Jordan Smallwood, all these guys going one after another after another. You remember Jarvis Baxter? I don't think, did he play at all in the spring? Did they hold him out? I can't even remember now. I don't remember seeing him.
And I want to say that he did not play in the spring game.
I don't think he played in the spring. Or I think he did play, but he didn't have any catches. But he wasn't out all spring. I think he might have had a small injury here or there. But remember, he had didn't he get concussed in the Orange Bowl?
I think he was one of the three.
Yeah. So I mean, he got knocked out of that game.
Him, Mixon, and Baker, right?
Yeah, and it was he's a good player. He's not a great player. I mean, but you got Mark Andrews. They are banking on somebody step. But Jeffrey Mead, we saw him out there. Good God, I mean, just have some pudding or something. He hasn't gained a single pound, I don't think. He might be skinnier.
He should have a lifetime. He should have a lifetime ticket to Ray's Barbecue over on Lindsay Street. Can we do free advertising there?
How about pudding? How about make him eat like those roller things from like On Q or something constant. Those are fatty.
He's always rolling around on the what's that thing? Not a moped, but he's never walking anywhere, so he can't be losing weight that way. He's always on the scooter thing.
I would kill for that metabolism. So, I mean, but A.D. Miller was the guy that to me stood out more than anybody receiver. I mean, Dahu Green was out there. We saw him working with the campers. But yeah, I mean, at receiver, it's put up or shut up time for a lot of those people. And I mean, the new guys coming in, you've got a spot. You got an opportunity. I mean,
yep.
We'll see what happens with DuVernay if he ends up here. I mean, that's something we still got to talk about, the Baylor stuff. But I will say, out of all the guys that were out there, everybody looked really good. You saw Ricky DeBerry. I didn't really see him
great.
Much. You pointed him out to me when he was packing up one day. And Chance Selvey was out there working with the DBs.
I mean, how long did we sit there and think, like, who the hell is that guy with Stephen Parker?
Yeah, it took me a while.
And then it was like, oh, my God, that's Chance Selvey.
What's so weird about Selvey is he looks taller out of uniform than he does in uniform.
Yeah.
Like, for some reason, he shrinks down when he's in a uniform. I don't know what that is. I rarely see something like that. So, but this is what I took most out of seeing all the players out there. Samaje Perine was doing the rope drills, showing campers like how to do them. He looks completely healthy to me. I mean, he looks like he has rehabbed about as well as could be expected. His calves were scary looking. He didn't lose any muscle in his legs. I mean,
Samaje doesn't strike me as a guy that they had to stay on his ass all
forced
summer.
To get to rehab.
Yeah, about getting to rehab. I'm sure he goes home and does the, well, if you want to do this when you get home, it might help you. I'm sure he does it like 20 times when he gets home.
I bet he gets there before the trainers do. And he's probably halfway through his workout.
It would not surprise me.
But he looked good. I mean, he looked 100% ready to go for summer workouts. I don't think that they'll miss a beat there. I think the only guy there is really to worry about with summer workouts is Charles Walker.
Yeah.
With his wrist injury, because I think that's going to set him back, and he won't be completely healthy and cleared probably until right before camp or right after camp starts.
The guy that they really need, I would think they really need Devonta Lampkin to come in and have a really, really good summer. Get his body right.
Yeah. I agree. And he seems like a guy that really does work hard.
I think he does, yeah.
He's in shape. He worked really hard to get into shape last year. And I think he stayed in really good shape. That was probably one of the most disappointing things about the spring was that they lost him.
Mm-hmm.
And but other than that, I mean, I'll be curious to see what Orlando Brown looks like after a summer of working out. He looks really good. Drew Samia, I mean, to me, is the guy. We saw Christian Daimler. He was out working. Yep. He looks good still. I mean, I didn't want to stop him and be like, dude, you look good. That would be creepy, but
pat him on the butt.
To.
You look great, man.
I'm not a butt patter. And even when I was playing athletics, no. If people patted me on the butt, I did. A coach could get away with it. That's about it.
Sometimes it's a good thing.
So, but Jordan Smallwood looked good. He was out there healthy. Just don't know if he can catch balls. And then I saw Logan Robertson. He was out there working with the offensive lineman.
If you want to talk about a guy that has completely transformed his body,
he's still not your prototypical looking offensive lineman, but you can tell he's losing some of the fat.
He definitely is.
He's a mid-semester guy. I mean, he should just be coming in to work out for the first time right now.
What we need to do is and I wish we would have done it while we were out at the camp this week, but I'm sure we have pictures of Chance Sylvie and Logan, just even 4 months ago.
Yeah.
From their high school days, and kind of compare it to what they look like now. I mean, that's just 4 or 5, or I guess, 4 months of working with Jerry Schmidt, not even in the summer conditioning program.
Right,
that's just your
winter,
off-season winter stuff.
Yeah.
And they've completely changed their body. I think, talking about Charles Walker, Neville Gallimore's going to need to have a big year. Marquise Overton was out there this weekend.
Yeah, I saw him a little bit, yeah.
He's never somebody I don't think that's going to just blow you away physically, but all of a sudden he makes a bunch of plays on the goal line.
I thought when I saw him walking by, that dude's one of their best players, and he doesn't look like it at all.
Very unassuming.
He is. I mean, he's very talented, athletic, just leverage-wise. It doesn't matter. He's big enough. I mean, he doesn't need to get smaller. He doesn't need to really get bigger. He's just kind of who he is.
I've always kind of thought it was funny, he beat Bray Walker in the state finals of wrestling.
Uh-huh.
I guess it would have been his senior year, Bray's freshman year. And it was just funny, those two guys are in the same weight class and they couldn't be any more different physically.
Okay, running out of time here, but let's move on to Baylor and kind of the fallout from that. Obviously, everyone is interested in some of their players, and all of their players, for the most part, won out of their national letters of intent. And several guys that OU recruited very hard and heavily that ended up signing with Baylor. I even had coaches asking me this weekend, what do you know? What could happen? Because it's no one really knows when or where or how. I mean, obviously Parrish Cobb's dad has no idea.
He seems real happy about the decision making out of Waco. I was telling you before we started this, it surprises. I guess it shouldn't surprise me, but it seems like it gets worse and worse and worse as far as national perception of Baylor with each asinine, dumbass decision that they make down there.
Well, here's, I think, what it comes down to me, what it comes down to for me is, for instance, Parrish Cobb, his recruitment, it was obvious that the family got sold on Baylor just as much as Parrish Cobb did.
Very much.
And that kind of swayed them. But, for other people to come out and say, we had no idea this stuff was going on and this and that, it does concern me a little bit, and maybe it's no different than Kyler Murray's situation, but the helicopter parents on this thing, it's it's not just, you almost feel like the anger for, it's not just about their kids, it's about them too. Like that they bought into this thing that was just obviously out of control, got the wool pulled over their eyes. I mean,
that's their fault for buying in from a cheap. I mean, Art Briles is what he is. He's almost like a cheap used car salesman almost. I mean, he throws this facade over that he's just this good old country guy that cares about the kids and everything, and then he's doing all this other stuff behind the scenes. I mean, I just don't understand where people get off in thinking that, or taking him for what it's worth. That
he's like Woody Harrelson in No Country for Old Men.
Yeah, just kind of says things, anything that you want to hear, and then goes behind your back and does everything.
Kills people.
Yeah.
God,
I wouldn't be. I mean, he's a modern day Dave Bliss.
I don't know.
No.
I mean, look. There's plenty of things you can point your fingers to over the years, and say, well, you should have paid attention to this, but that's not how it works. I mean, like,
no. You're right.
You can't sit and say to one family like, oh well. Everybody thinks that what happened with Jarrett Stidham was really shady. I mean, everybody on the outside thinks that, but they sell the program to you and your kid, and you buy into it, and you ignore all that stuff. So but just to see the outrage about it, it's your fault too, if you're the parents, because you bought into it, and I don't know. I know that there were a lot of warning signs, just like with Ole Miss. There are a lot of people that said stuff doesn't make sense at Baylor.
But at the end of the day, I mean, you do think that these guys or these kids should be allowed to get out of their national letter of intent, right?
Well, just the coaching change alone usually lets you out.
Right.
Yeah. So what happens, though, I mean, here's what happens and how it has to happen. Either the school lets the kid out, or the National Letter of Intent Committee that Bob Bowlesby's a part of, the Eligibility Committee, I think is what it's called. I remember dealing with all this stuff with Devontae Lampkin last year. Like, that's who you need to talk to, Devontae Lampkin, because he probably is an expert on how this all works.
Getting out of it.
But, yeah, the Eligibility Committee can rule whether a National Letter of Intent is valid, or they can give you a waiver. They can award a waiver. So it's going to come down to them awarding waivers, and these kids and their parents should be concerned about not trying to chase down media members to talk to Jim Grobe. They should be immediately looking into the eligibility committee and trying to get their waiver passed on their National Letter of Intent and get them invalidated, because that's how Devontae Lampkin got to Oklahoma. Well, actually, he was in Oklahoma while they were trying to get it invalidated. So,
and I would think, I mean, this Baylor situation is a lot more serious than not wanting to take a Spanish class or whatever Lampkin used to get out.
Yeah, and the eligibility committee, I don't think they really have to rule on it. Oh, it's because of,
they can just say yes or no
and stuff like that. They'll just say, look, these letters we found, Art Briles is no longer at the school, the coach that they signed with, so they're invalidated. Now Baylor is probably going to fight it. I mean, they're probably going to say, look, the coach is gone, but all these other coaches that are their position coaches are still here.
Which, that's another story. I mean, I don't see how they could have, how Jim Grobe can keep Kendall Briles, of all people, calling his plays.
And Jeff Lebby.
Or Jeff Lebby in the same meeting room as the offense. I mean, these guys go to Christmas dinner and Thanksgiving dinner at Art Briles' house.
Yeah, that baffles me, and even Phil Bennett, because I think it's you have to take down your generals, basically. I mean, the generals have to fall, and the offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators, they should be gone. Jim Grobe should have to replace them.
It's just, I think it kind of goes in line with everything that's happened down there, though. It's a Baylor is trying to pull. I don't want to say they are trying to pull a victim card, but they're trying to be the people that they just don't want to take this thing head on. It feels like they don't want to be the people. They want to be the victim rather than the people that really probably should be.
Yeah, and that's the sad thing, is that what the hardest part for Baylor is yet to come, which is getting sued in federal court by rape victims and having charges brought up against you from the Department of Education for not following Title IX guidelines. I mean, the worst is yet to come for them. Football, all that stuff is just the stuff you're going to see in the papers, but there's some really bad stuff getting ready to happen to Baylor.
It seems like for the most part, unfortunately, it seems like a majority of Baylor fans feel like, they've done this, and this by firing Briles, getting rid of the chancellor, Ken Starr, and they've done all this stuff. And so now they're saying, well, we did all this. Are you not happy? Are you still not happy? That's not the point. That's not the point of all this. The point is
and stop taking out full page ads praising Ken Starr. I mean, Lord.
It's just unbelievable.
All right. Well, there is no controversy in the spring for Oklahoma spring sports because now Pete Hughes is staying on at baseball, which I think a lot of people thought
is a controversy.
I guess a lot of people thought a month ago he was definitely on his way out. Just kind of, Eddie, you follow the baseball team, very closely. What were your thoughts on kind of how all that went down?
Well, if you were an advocate of wanting to get rid of Pete Hughes, the last month of the season probably wasn't the best news that you could have received. They won the Bedlam series, took 2 out of 3.
So how did they do that, by the way? I mean,
and this is on the heels of OSU now going to Clemson to a super regional. That's the thing, though. I think that's the most frustrating thing for Oklahoma baseball fans is they are just so inconsistent. And every time that you felt like things were heading in the right direction, they took one step back. I mean, I think that after that Bedlam series, even, they went out to Austin Peay, and they still won the series, but on the last day of the season, they got, basically run-ruled on the road by an Austin Peay program that hadn't hosted a major Division I program on campus since like 1998. I mean, it's been the cliche, I guess, 2 steps forward or 3 steps back. With the Pete Hughes program, and I'm very, very surprised that they're going to bring back Jamie Penzino, Mike Anderson, 2 assistant coaches that have been with Hughes since he got here.
Yeah,
and you're going into next year that it's a big season. I think that having as many freshmen as they did, I think they started at least 3 freshmen in nearly every game this season. I think that was a big thing for Hughes. He's finally getting some of, quote unquote, his guys in. But then again, you look back at last season, and they had 11 guys drafted and didn't even sniff the NCAA tournament.
Did Pete Hughes really misevaluate Cody Thomas a year ago? Or did he come along because he did quit football and concentrated on baseball? Because, he wasn't great when this season started, but he became their best player by the end of the year.
I think it was just a matter of him getting at bats and getting into the getting in the lineup.
But he had 12 at bats a year ago, right?
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, I think it probably was a little bit of a misevaluation by Hughes. He probably should have played more. Let
me ask you: do you think Cody Thomas, wherever he gets drafted, he just goes?
I would.
Just get out of here. I don't know how close he is to graduating.
Yeah, that's probably a good question. I know that.
The other thing is what happens to his ride? I'm sure he was still on a full football ride. But if you're Pete Hughes, you have to offer Cody Thomas whatever he wants to come back, don't you?
I would think so, because I would think that he would have to. Can you transfer over a scholarship? I know you wouldn't be getting a full ride. Bob doesn't want that 85
on his.
No.
And if he's not coming back, hell no, he's not keeping that scholarship on football. It's not like.
Can you, though, from an NCAA standpoint, can't he be dropped by football and then be put on some type of baseball scholarship?
I would think that you have to if he's not playing football anymore.
I just don't know if that's, even legal.
That's something I'll definitely want to check into.
Because, I think it's probably interesting where he's going to get drafted. He ended his season about as well as you could. Just hitting everything. I think he won.
He's the reason they won Bedlam.
Yeah. I think he hit 470 or 480 the last month of the season. I think that he probably has some things to come back and work on in the outfield. I don't think he's the most polished outfielder. He has a really, really good arm, but there were a lot of balls that were hit out to him that he misplayed or took a wrong angle at him and stuff. So he has a pretty long ways to go, I think, as far as becoming a more complete baseball player. It would definitely be a big big help if they could. And, somebody that will be joining the baseball program next year that will be a very interesting addition will be Kyler Murray. He's going to be playing next year on that team. So, I think they're getting ready to take a pretty big hit, though, with Sheldon Noisey's going to get drafted. I would think decently high. He's going to be gone next season. Alec Hansen's going to get drafted by somebody,
and
even though he can't throw a strike, he's going to get drafted still very, very high.
Hey, Garrett Richards is in the Major League Baseball, even though I think does he have Tommy John surgery again?
Something like that, or maybe a knee injury or something. He had the knee injury last year. I think he is having Tommy John now.
Yeah,
but he just signed a huge deal with the Angels coming out,
which is great for him. But it's not like you saw him like being a star pitcher.
No,
or even in somebody's top rotation coming out of college.
The guy started opening day for the Angels. It's going to be really interesting. It's a huge year for Pete Hughes coming into next season, and I think that there's obviously only one option that they can make for him to come back for a fifth season, and that would be making the NCAA tournament. You can't miss 4 years at Oklahoma and expect to come back.
I'm gonna get drunk and go rip out that carpet mound.
It's so bad. It's so bad. I thought I was.
Any Sooner scoopers want to go help me rip out the carpet mound? I'll pay the fines.
I'd probably be 2 more people than were at the ballpark all year.
All right, well, and then softball tonight coming up, and we'll get this podcast up tonight. But Patty Casso,
she's the GOAT.
What she is doing, 30 games in a row now.
They've won 30 games in a row.
30 games in a row.
The OU baseball team, I think, was 30-27-1 this year.
But freshmen and sophomores up and down that line. What's scary is if they win this thing,
dynasty.
They are the number one team.
Can you have a softball dynasty?
They have sophomore pitcher, Paige Parker's been fantastic, but their entire infield is either freshman or sophomore. You got Nicole Penley. My God. They got the new Lauren Chamberlain. Shay Knighton is fantastic.
Yeah. How much do you think this is going to turn into a Big 12 SEC thing tonight?
I don't think much.
I want it to be a lot.
OU has already knocked out 2 SEC teams.
That's true.
And there's only one left out of 4, so
it would be very interesting. I would think
to me, Auburn, I don't pretend to be a softball expert, but I think that Auburn uses a whole bunch of different pitchers and stuff.
Yeah, I think they use like 4 or 5. That
does not sound like a good recipe against this Oklahoma team.
No. And it's different. Just watching the game last night, I obviously haven't covered OU softball all season or anything like that, but it's definitely interesting to see what they've done with going from a home run hitting team last year with Lauren Chamberlain and that group to just, it seems like they're just flat out, they get hits.
Yeah, then they run. Nobody can stop them from running.
Shay Knighton, I guess, had the 3-run homer to send them in the first round of the winner's bracket.
Penley had that 3-run home run.
Yeah, and I think they've hit some big home runs, but it seems like for the most part, they steal bases and they get base hits, and they don't make errors.
They're so much better than the Cubs. They're almost like the Royals.
No, OU softball is basically the Chicago Cubs of baseball, doing it with all these young people.
And Paige Parker is Jake Arrieta.
Nobody's Jake Arrieta, but she's really good. She's kind of like John Lester, I guess. Left-handed.
All right, well, the Royals are the world champions, so
it's all right.
I guess to be compared to a lesser team.
You can keep saying that for 5 months, I guess, or however long the summer is of baseball.
All right, I'm going to let you go. Everyone, Eddie, you're not fired. We're done with the podcast. Okay. As I said, you are not delusive, in the words of President Boren. I think you have things to do.
I'm not a wallflower either.
That remains to be seen. All right, that'll wrap it up for us here on the Soonerscoop.com podcast. We will be back. If we've been out, it's just been camps and team camps, and it's been craziness. So we haven't been able to stay up with this stuff. But now we're on iTunes. We're also on the Google Play Store,
big.
Stitcher. We're supposed to be on TuneIn, but I don't know if that's working yet. So Stitcher, I think I said that one. So we're trying to get on every platform out there, as possible. But just being on iTunes and Google Play is big for either you iOS or Android people. So you can subscribe to the podcasts. When new ones come out, they will download to your phone. Go get the app, too, the Rivals app on the App Store or your Google Play Store. And download that, because now all of our notifications and things are coming out of our app. So make sure you have that for breaking news as well. I know there's been some bugs in the past, but it's all working really well now. So anyway, for Eddie Radosevich, I'm Kerry Murdoch. Thanks for listening to the Soonerscoop.com podcast. The unofficial 40, a couple of versions of those will be coming before the Rivals 5-Star gets underway this week. So stay tuned for that as well. You guys have a great week, and we'll talk to you next time.